It's my great pleasure to welcome Niko or Niklas Klein. He is an alumnus of the interaction design program. He graduated in 2017, and since then he worked as a digital product designer with Figma. And also since then he worked constantly with prototyping and features on the Figma editor and did some major contributions there. And we are hoping that he shares tonight a glimpse of what's upcoming and kind of the thinking behind. And more broadly, Niklas is interested in accessible abstractions and collaboration. And I think are you here, Niko? Can you hear? Okay, cool. I think you have to unmute you. Okay,
I'm here.
you're here. Super. Yeah, the stage is yours. Hi, welcome. Please welcome Niko.
Thank you. This is super fun. So I've been thinking a lot about this area of AI and prototyping. Very excited to be here. Thanks so much, Bene. You can all hear me and see me well. It's all good. Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So basically, I feel like when Bene was reaching out, like I knew that we were working already on some AI-related prototyping capabilities and interaction design capabilities with Figma that we just launched last week. And but ultimately, like I want to start with this one, literally just because I was looking through some old photos to try to find some photos of me in Schwäbisch Gmünd, and I found the Ohm stool. And I was like, that was so fun. I still have it at home. It was really fun building the Ohm stool here. But yeah, a little bit about me. I graduated. This is me. If I put my head somewhere here now, you won't see it. I'm the guy who's like half cut off. This is Flo and Christoph, who I did my bachelor's thesis with in 2017 in Schwäbisch Gmünd. It's been a ton of fun. I wonder if Bene, you were in the audience. Maybe. But yeah, there were probably a couple people
I
here.
was.
Yeah, right, you were. And okay, then 2018, 6 months later, I joined this like small startup in San Francisco. It was like 35 people back then. Like Figma was really tiny. And since then, I was a product designer who just focused on interactivity features. I focused on prototyping. I focused a lot on the core editor stuff. And so over the years, we just kept adding more individual features. We'll talk about this in a second. But like all of those things were focused around like interactive components, variants, variables, like smart animate, like a lot of those kind of like core editing capabilities. And since then, the only thing that changed is that now I'm actually a product manager, but I'm still focused on exactly those same things. I switched into product management. That's probably a whole other separate discussion and separate talk on like how the product designers or product managers, interaction designers, what's the overlap between all of that? And it's super interpreted, or you can interpret this in many different ways depending on who you're talking to, what the company is. And I think that especially for strategic, my like 2 cent hot take here is that I feel much more like a product designer with strategically minded who's dressing up as a product manager right now within this context. So I still feel like I'm a designer. I'm just more effective in this organization as a product manager, right? But there's nothing that I'm doing differently than what I did before. So yeah, especially for like strategic minded designers, that you might actually be much closer to a product manager role in certain tech companies than you are to being a product designer or kind of like from where I learned. The other thing that changed is we're not in that office anymore. That was the single small office of Figma. This is now, we have 4 floors in the Feeling building in downtown San Francisco and a couple of other offices across the globe, which is just also just really crazy. Like seeing that growth and being part of it, it's just like it's just, I don't know, it's wild. It's been 7.5 years now. So I still sometimes can't believe it. Figma in my head still feels very small to me. But I actually met one of the one student from who's she's currently at HfG today, and then she told me that she didn't even use Sketch. That throughout their whole university life, she's only used Figma. And I'm like, I can't, I just like this doesn't compute in my head that someone would just grow up with Figma and not use like 500 other design tools before that. So that's pretty cool. And a little bit like about like the last 2 weeks have been busy. This was literally last week in San Francisco. We had our big conference config with like I think it was like 8 or 9,000 people. And I was like presenting something about actually AI and code on stage, which was really fun. Big stage there. And then yesterday, we had our config in London, where it's also presenting, same hat, this guy, where it's also presenting about code layers and AI and interactivity and all of those pieces. So I've been talking about this for a while, and I'm actually like putting this talk together was really fun because it kind of like zooms out a little, and it's a little bit less like product selly because both of those other demos are like a lot more about like, oh, how is Figma good in doing these things, or what are our thoughts behind this. I'm gonna try to be a little bit less on the like selling our features side and a little bit more on kind of like stepping back as like a designer talking to other designers on a different audience, because ultimately there's these two questions like what the fuck is happening? And the other part is like, what does that mean for us, of course, right? And let's start with the first one, because over the years, one thing I've been thinking about is this like, or like if I look back at my time at Figma and what I've been doing while I was working there, is that I've always taken these like steps, right? So let's say we started like somewhere there. This is totally, there's no more accuracy of timeline or whatever. But the first step is like, oh, we added interactions. One of my first projects was that when I started a Figma prototype, you could click on a button, go to the next screen. That's it. So one of the first projects I added was while hovering, right? Mouse enter, mouse out as events to go from one screen to the next. Like that's the level of small steps I was like helping to do and add into Figma, right? One of the next projects was smart animate, right? That okay, I have 2 frames and like an object is here and then it's in a different position and then it's going to animate like keynotes magic move and all of those things, right? And then interactive components, right? Interactive components because so like I can like reuse a little bit of interactivity in a lot of different places. And so in all those cases, it always felt like we're like just like dragging along. We're just like adding a little bit of interactivity, a little bit of fidelity to just like slowly increase this to get more people to kind of move towards expressing their interactive ideas better. And if I think about the next step here, yeah, the next step here was then advanced prototyping. Oh yeah, it's like now we're talking about like 2018 to 2021. So that already was like 4 years of just like step-by-step work, which in hindsight kind of feels slow. But like with advanced prototyping, Figma prototyping became Turing complete. And that was really funny because within 2 days, someone built a C++ compiler with Figma prototyping features. I'm like, that's just like, I saw this and I'm like, I mean, of course, it's also super slow because it's clearly not built to be a C++ compiler. And the frame rates are just like much slower than like what you'd need a C++ compiler to be. But people started building this. And at that point, kind of like in my head, like Figma started to become a little bit more like a programming environment than like a vector design tool, what it has been in the past years. But ultimately, if I look at like what has happened, right? This is a Figma prototype, right? And it has an input field. It has like multiple shaders. I can kind of like edit text in here. I can have like set a reminder, right? I can switch between different shaders, right? And like it's a Figma prototype, right? Both of those things are built in Figma, right? And it's a little interaction side on the side, a little bit like animated rotating text on the right, right? And it's like a little bit micro interactions. This is something I demoed yesterday, right? There's a lot of kinetic text, a lot of kind of like typography explorations, a little bit of like physics over here, and like this like little drawing tool I did there. And then this was a full 3D. This is also built in Figma, which is like wild. Well, I'll get to like how we built this, and or this one here, right? And it's a full-on Mapbox integration with like You can go through different paths. And no one has written code for any of these, right? So in this context of AI and code, both of them are built with like Figma Make, which is like our 0 to 1 AI product, and then Code Layers, which isn't out yet, but I'm happy to demo it. I've demoed this in the past already. And those are two projects I've worked on over the last weeks, months, years, really. And so it's crazy because like all of those examples, no one wrote code. And it's just like, oh yeah, I was just like prompting here a little bit and then creating it from designs, and they all just work. And so if I look back at this this level here, it's a little sad because if we put the next step here, we have to kind of like flatten this whole curve. And I'm like, did I just spend 7 years of my life adding a little bit of interactivity and a little bit of interactivity and a little bit because this is what it feels like right now. And that's what I mean is like, what the fuck is happening? Like this is so wild compared to where we were over the last years, right? It just made a massive jump, right? And because like I'm sure you remember kind of like all of these places where you've used like all these different tools, fireworks, Flash, right? And in all of those tools, it always felt like reachable. It's not like this is new fidelity. You could always code, but the easily reachable fidelity, the whole thing just shifted massively and really enables more people to express their ideas. And so then this is the second part. Like, what does that mean for us? And I think the first one is like, of course, the sky is the limit, right? But it always has been, right? The digital medium already was always really, really powerful. And it always was like available for people who can code to do those things, right? But the shift, I think, is actually puts the onus and the responsibility on everyone now, right? If it is up to you to actually fly, right? Because it's easy. Everyone, it's kind of like a dream. Because if I could have told myself studying, I mean, like, oh yeah, why don't you just like prompt your prototype idea into existence the day you have it, and don't spend like trying to learn how to code for the next 3 weeks just to get like the first version of your idea into a playable state. Like so that has really changed. And now it's really up to you. It's up to the agency that you have and in finding ways, playing with this, integrating this into your workflow. And you kind of don't have an excuse anymore, right? Because in the past, it's kind of like this optional thing to prototype something and it's just not there. Or like it's like, oh no, I can't code, this is too hard, I can't do this. It's like, no, the tools are here for you to express your ideas. And kind of like what happened is that previously, looking back, right, working in the digital medium, there's this difference between I have an idea, right, and the expression is really far away, right? And then like it's the same with this. It happened with Flash and with fireworks, sure. When I started, a lot of people animated UIs in After Effects. That felt static in a different way. It felt too linear. I loved using Principle back then as well. But yeah, it was felt always optional. And so what happened, right, is that like this shrank to a minimum because the thought and the ability to express your idea actually is now so much closer. And I think this is just like, this is super cool. One immediate change I think we will see and might already kind of like see a lot is that static assets when designing in the digital medium and as a thing to share out, not as a helpful tool to explore your idea, but as a thing to share out, are kind of dead. I think that we will default to like sharing interactive artifacts, right? You will still 100% telling you will still, of course, sketch different frames side by side or put something here and then put something somewhere else and just put it on a canvas and explore with all of this. Like that's still necessary. But once you start sharing out something, you can make that interactive incredibly quickly. And so that's kind of like the first part is that like just try to share out anything interactive as soon as you have an idea. It's possible. The other thing, right? The other thing is hard problems are going to stay hard problems, right? If we think about like stuff we're working on, right? And people always look at this. I mean, like designing, being like, oh, AI tools, they're going to kill design tools, right? But I think that's just not true to what designing is about, right? Because if I can describe the solution that like at the beginning of the project, I'm done anyways. Like what am I even doing if when I'm starting something, I can just describe the solution? Like, what is there to do, right? Who starts a project and can perfectly describe what the solution should be? Then that's not really a hard project if you can describe it at the beginning anyways, right? Field design is so much about like figuring this out, and designing, of course, feels so much more like this, right? About like trying things out. It's a windy journey, right? And one of the stories I wanted to share on this is it's actually about multi-edit. Multi-edit is a feature. We came up with it, or like we started with it the first time in 2018. Also really interesting, there's code components on here, and we just shipped code components. So that's another thing where like we started in 2018, we're like, oh, we should like have like code inside of Figma at some point. And then that's a whole other story why that took 7 years to ship. But yeah, multi-edit, we started this in 2018, and we shipped it in 2024. So it took a while. It really took a while to not, we weren't continuously working on this. It just like had some time. And we knew the problem, right? We knew that the problem is something like this, right? When you have 3 objects selected and you resize them and you're in different frames, they're like resizing in all different directions. Like it makes sense if you look at it systemically. And it's like, sure, yeah, that's how resizing should behave, but like it's wrong. I don't want those things to resize like this, right? And we're like, but we have to somehow solve this. But when I was thinking about describing it, right, I just couldn't. It's like we knew the problem, but like I just couldn't put it into like a sentence what this is. I was like, oh, maybe we can do this with like slightly different modes, or maybe there's a way to like do this and then maybe have like a double click or like a different special hotkey that like changes something. So many different ideas, right? But it was just a hard problem. And like when I tried to tell people, they just like were like, Niko, what the fuck are you talking about? But the key part of this is really like I just don't have the words for it yet, right? And so I think that's the other part where like coming back to this other one up here, right? Where people are like, oh, just generate me XYZ, right? But I can't do that if I don't have the words for it, right? I need to be able to feel my way through a solution, right? To get to something. But the funniest thing is that like if you then actually look at where we landed, it's show multiple selection bounds across hierarchies. And once I got to this point where I can explain the core idea of multi-edit in a single sentence, right? Where you've been working on a problem and then at some point it clicks and you can just describe it in a single sentence, you kind of feel dumb for spending so much time trying to figure out every possible solution. And then you explain this to someone and they walk away and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I'm like, it took me so long to get here. Don't just walk away and accept this as the solution. Like I want to shake them. I was like, oh, this is, and they're just like, oh yeah, sure, good idea. I'm like, it's been such a journey to get here, right? And that's kind of like the second takeaway with AI. This isn't going to be solved with AI, right? It can help us move faster, but hard problems are still going to be hard to describe for a long time, and you need a way to feel your way through them. And that's different than describing what the solution should be. Like sometimes I don't have words for it. Sometimes I just want to draw it out, like sketching something, explaining something, playing with something, right? Like the ability to explore and iterate and feel your way through like an ambiguous problem space. That's really what designers are good at, right? I remember the differences between me studying interaction design and my brother studying mechanical engineering. And mechanical engineering was very much like, this is correct, this is the wrong answer. Learn the rules. And with studying interaction design, it's like, what is a good solution on a project that you're working on? No one fucking knows. Because it depends. You're not only coming up with the solution, right? You're also coming up with the evaluation criteria that defines what the good solution is, and you're doing both of those at the same time, right? So you're changing the way to evaluate this, who you are focusing on, who you're designing for, what the problem is you're trying to solve, and you're trying to solve the thing that might constantly change, right? So it's a very ambiguous space, and you just need to feel your way through this. And that's the other thing. Whereas like when people ask me what design is about, it's really something too close to this tweet I saw this morning, and that also dates when I put those slides together. But I was on stage yesterday, so that I hope that's okay. But this is kind of like, this is what design inside of Figma often feels like. Hundreds of different explorations, hundreds of different things that people just put on the side, some of them done by hand, some of them done with the help of AI. And so that's the other part, is like, you need to feel your way through them. The AI isn't going to feel your way through this, because you need to, both of those sides, the ambiguous ways to evaluate an idea and the detailed like solution for that, right? You need to figure out both of them, because both of them might be changing throughout the process of the project that you're trying to solve, right? So AI can help on both of those sides, but it's still going to change a lot. And then the last one is like, what about the details of all of this, right? Because if we look back at this multi-edit thing, we got to this like very easy description, and we're like, oh yeah, that's gonna be nice. Okay, we got it, right? We got it. And then we actually started building it, and we're like, oh, we can ship it in 3 months. We still had to work on it for a year, because it just took there were so many details to be defined, right? I couldn't have just said, oh, AI, solve this for me, right? Because it's like, oh, AI would have just kept asking me, it's like, oh, but what about this case? What about the case when you have selections with some of the selections, that's this one here, with some of the selections being in the frame, some of the selections being out of the frame. Based on our first set of rules, we would have moved like this overview, product, and details all entirely to the left. But now we're matching overview to the closest layer, products to the closest layer, and detail to the closest layer, right? But that's a special case in those rules, right? There was another special case which was about what happens if you group elements, right? If you have two elements in one frame selected and two elements in the other frame selected, and you group them, you want two groups, right? And we were applying that same thing within a single artboard, where you have two elements selected in one frame over here, then two elements in the other frame. And then we said like, oh, let's group them. But then people started yelling at us because people used the grouping action to bring things into the same hierarchy, right? So now the systemic rules we came up with didn't actually apply to the user behavior that is there, right? And that's again, you need to figure this out. You need to just play with it, see how other people are using this. And again, that sounds very much like designing, right? So if you look at this process, this was maybe like a process before this. So you have like some static design, some first prototypes. You went back into the bottom as like you restarted in code, and then you kind of like are starting to refine the details. And with AI, it might look something like this. You might get to a functional prototype really, really, really fast, right? But to actually finesse and get to a high quality idea, you need to tweak it. You need to tweak it a lot. And it's like, oh, but what about this? And what about this? And what about this? Right? And so that's the third one here, which is like details still matter. And in a way, details matter maybe even more, because it's so much easier now in the industry and digital product to get to a state where things work, right? But in a competitive landscape, when there's other tools that can also get to that state, right? The question is like, who can go a little further, right? Who can go a little better? And so there's going to be, I think, a lot of industries in digital design where people are going to be like, oh, previously that was too hard to do. And someone, a new competitor in any space really, might build a software that feels better with much less resources, right? Much fewer resources. And now you're like, oh shit, okay, we got to like improve our design, because the floor just like the baseline just rose so much, because you can get to a higher quality software much faster, which means there's actually, I think, more need for better problem solving of hard problems and finding like novel solutions for this. And yeah, that all, if you look at this, right, it will allow us to feel out idea faster with AI. We will default to sharing interactive artifacts and to stand out more whenever details matter. But this talk really isn't that much about AI if you think about it. Because you look at all of those things, sky is the limit, it's up to you to fly, hard problems are going to stay hard problems, and details still matter. And that's just like, that's what designers are good at anyways, right? So I feel that like my goal with this talk was really to just be like an optimist in the room, maybe. That like, this is actually really cool. Like, there's a lot of capabilities. And I could now say it's like, oh, Figma cares about designers and just wants to like solve for them and kind of like try to sell you Figma. But there's a different reason why I'm at Figma for 7 years now. Because I'm just trying to design for my younger self, right? Because if I'm looking back at me and to all of like his friends, my younger friends, my younger self's friends, right? Because looking at this bachelor's thesis, I still have the book. I still open it up. I still sometimes go to our website because I'm like, I'm proud of what we put together. I'm proud of what we built. I'm proud of what we designed. And I like looking back at this. And creating interactive experiences is cool. I like it, right? And more people should be doing this in a way that creates something that they enjoy, something of high quality. And that's the most exciting thing for me when working in Figma, is seeing what other people create in the space that I help to put together. And yeah, that's my talk about AI and prototyping. Thanks so much.
So guys, how you feel about demo or straight into the questions? Okay, here, I think Demo. It was quite eindeutig.
Yeah,
Nico, could you, whatever, 5 to 10 minutes demo and then questions?
yeah,
Is that cool?
yeah. I'll figure it out 1 second.
Super. And maybe we can, yeah.
I'm just gonna run. Let me see if I can move this tab over. Okay. Do you see the Figma site?
Yes.
All right. Basically, there's two things here, right? I'm gonna do this. Let's see. Back to files. Let's see if this works. All right, Figma. So there's two new things in Figma since create make. Right, there's two new things in Figma. One of them is Figma Make, right? So this is kind of like Figma's 0 to 1 experience, and it's similar to kind of like some of the 0 to 1 tools you've had, right? We'll just kind of pick one here. I haven't prepared a demo for this one really well, but it's like a similar like kind of 0 to 1 tool that you might have experienced, right? You can prompt something, and we generate code for you, and then you can start playing with this. What we really tried to get right on this one was this part of like taking in your designs and actually respecting your designs, because it is like if you have this stuff in Figma and created the designs in Figma, then like we should be the ones that create the best code that represents the design the best for you, so you can actually precisely edit your designs and then kind of like use this. And I'm gonna jump, while this is working, jump to this other keynote, and so or other demo. And so this is Figma design or Figma sites, right? It's a new kind of like website building product. And this is actually, if you go to config.new, that site is actually entirely designed and built inside of Figma. And it has already a couple of interactions on it, right? Like I can make this, I can drag this around, and like if I look at kind of like how this was built, we'll move the whole window, right? I'm gonna zoom down here, and I can see, okay, there's an interaction already set up on this element. That's a preset, right? It's kind of like instead of it being like a trigger in action, it's actually just a preset. And it's like, oh, yeah, this element should be draggable. And so instead of saying like on drag, change the position, kind of like very programmy, it's like a different abstraction, right? Thanks for that introduction about like accessible abstraction, because people's like, oh, I just want this element to be draggable. So that's kind of like, that's one step, having these effects and these presets, right? This one here is like a reveal effect as well. And so I can play with this. Or down here somewhere, let's see. Oh, I think this one here has a marquee applied to this. Yeah, marquee left. And even though the marquee tag disappeared from HTML, it kind of like works, of course, like a marquee. So this was kind of like one part of interactivity in Figma sites, right? But there was this other part about code layers. And for that, there was this one section here, let's see. This one down here, where it's like, we don't see design as a static artifact anymore. The apps we use every day needs to keep pace with our changing needs, right? And I'm just gonna take this over here, right? And so this one here was just like a static design. Like this is just a text box, right? But we wanted to make it a little bit more we wanted to make it a little bit more fun, right? And I have this little button over here, right? And so in the same way that there's this, this is the prototype it created after I asked it for like a multi-step sign-up flow. I think I actually can try to sign up here, right? And it now goes to the next page, actually asks me for one password. Niko Klein. Sorry, not entirely my birthday, but close enough. Mental valid. Yeah. So now I'm already at this point where I can like actually start to playing with this. And if I had a design for these things, I could like prompt it here. But with code layers, what we try to do is like we can now convert this into code and then start prompting it, right? So I can say make like highlight each word with opacity one by one, right? And I can send this off. But because we're in like a Figma design canvas, I can duplicate this and just ask another idea and say like, let's say repel or blur all words and then sequentially highlight each word, right? So we'll see if it does this, and I'll do this again, right? And I say repel each word, such as one L, from the mouse. And so that's kind of like the other thing we're going to try. So let's see what is happening over here, right? What's this? Oh yeah, highlight each word, right? So okay, so now it created this from the design that I did, turned it into code, and then I added some behavior, and it took me like, I don't know, what, like a minute. And if I look over here, it actually created some properties for me. No, it didn't. I was just going to say, create a property for the timing, right? And the property for the timing here, let's see if that's actually going to add it. Now we'll jump to, oh yeah, I'll add a new property. The important part here was that like we wanted this like the iteration workflows to be fitting to how you think about stuff, right? And the first iteration workflow is this like micro iteration, right? I think it's going to reload now and probably, yes, exactly. Now it gave me two properties and now I can say, hey, I want this animation speed to be really fast, right? And now it gives me a different vibe. Or I want the word timing to be really slow. That's too slow, right? If we make it too, it's like, we don't see design. So that's too fast, right? So I can now start to kind of like feel with the idea really quickly, right? So like, but I can close this and let me open the other one. Let's see what happened with this one. And so now it kind of like unblurs all of this. Okay, that's interesting. Did it have properties here? It's so funny live demoing AI stuff. It's like I did this yesterday in the keynote in London here, and it broke on the first try. And I'm like, oh, like it works in so many other cases, but of course in the live demo with a couple thousand people in the audience, then it decides to break. Really funny, by the way. But yeah, I can have like the blur intensity, can play with the blur intensity property. But the thing is like, I really kind of like want to play with this whole thing side by side, right? So I can just, let's do this, let's bring this over in here. Because while this iteration is nice, right? While this iteration is nice on individually, it's actually really fun once you kind of like see it compared, right? And down here, okay, this blur, let's actually take the other one we have here. I think it's this one. So it's like nicer side by side, right? Let's place this in here. All right. All right, so now we can see them all side by side. So within a couple of minutes, I actually created different iterations. And now I can start to kind of like apply what I mentioned about like the individual taste, the kind of like feeling my way through. It's not as nebulous, of course, but like feeling my way through this, I can just see the different aspects and kind of like see how this feels. And this one I think actually feels best. And it's like, this was one prompt too. Like this whole kinetic typography thing of pushing things away, this was one prompt that I added to make some kind of like little typography examples here. And let's bring this one over here. So I brought this over. And the other thing that's happening on this section here is that there's like a custom cursor with like an image. So I get like a little custom cursor. And I can present the whole thing, but the other thing was that like this is what I was talking about, where it's like we want things we want code to feel like a material that you can play with and like make a mess, right? And so like over here, this is all like I just didn't clean up the file, right? I just kept going and playing, and I was like, no, this is the whole artifact that I want people to see, I want people to play with, right? So there's a couple prototypes, a couple little prototypes I built. They're all like slightly different. I'm like exploring different things down here, right? And so let's present the whole page and I can talk about a couple of those. The first one up here was this like drawing thing, right? I showed this already in one of the videos, right? But I just kind of like added it to be like a drawing thing. Add a little tennis ball. Let's make the dog like much more focused because now there's a tennis ball and dog. I have a dog at home now, so it's like I miss my dog. I'm in London. I'm flying home tomorrow. Um, and so yeah, this is kind of like fun to try to make the site a little more engaging. And then down here we still have the draggable stuff. And now we can see here that like this combination with like the custom cursor and the words, it fits so much better to this quote on this website here, right? And so you can imagine that like those are the iterations that I did myself, right? Within like a couple minutes. I just played with this and just kind of like had fun on the site, which really is the goal. We just want people to have fun. And you can imagine that like if you do this like in a group, right, or as a team, somebody else might take my explorations and then riff on those, and somebody else might take my like those explorations and we'll try to combine them in the end somehow back together. And you can still always kind of like you can actually dig deeper and you can actually try to like understand the code and start working in the code as well. So it's not trying to abstract it away from you entirely, but it's trying to kind of like be a smoother gradient into kind of like free form or kind of like more free form writing and code, right? I could change the code in here, multiple people can change the code. And but the goal is the code is just a representation of this, right? And we didn't want the code to feel like it has to be the only way to work with this. And if I wanted to actually reuse this as a component, right, I can just do the same thing that I do with Figma, where I turn it into a component with even a shortcut or something, right? And then now I have instances. So now if I edit one of those, right, let's go to the code and edit something. Maybe we'll do, I don't know, there's no words in here. But yeah, if I would edit something now here, it would edit it in both places because now it's edit component. And so that's kind of like the thing where like we want people to explore freely and then move into more structured workflows. So yeah, that's the little demo of Figma Make and code layers.
Cool. Yeah, many thanks for the many thanks for the demo. Super interesting. And I'm sure there will be lots of questions for Niko. Any questions? Don't be shy. Come on.
No questions. No one to the KKF.
There are questions. But hey, could you come in front and then look in the camera so that Niko actually sees you? Otherwise, it might be a bit odd. So the camera is here.
The question maybe is, could you extract the actual code from those generated prototypes, or is it stays inside the Figma?
Yeah. The code is just here. This is entire, so the code that is generated here is an entire React component, right? So like we're not blocking you. You just copy and paste it, use it in a React container somewhere else on the web. It's just React. We're just generating React. You can use the code.
That's nice. Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, it was a quick one. Other questions? No one. Niko, it was a long day with lots of talks.
I know.
There are. So please come in front.
Where should I look at that? So I think the editors like Winstock or so on. Do you think that this function will replace them and rethink the new way of making websites, not convert them from Figma to Framer or so on, and just staying at Figma and making the website from there?
I think that there's like lots of different tools and lots of different competitors in the space. I think it's like I'm really just excited from how many different angles different companies are coming, right, and different approaches are there. And I think that like people like ultimately the goal under the hood for all of those really, like I know a couple of people who work on Cursor. We just want to get more people to build more things, more things in the digital medium. And I think that that's the shared goal between all of them. And that's really what this is. I don't know. This field is moving so fast. Like this was not imaginable a year ago. So I think the value is really just like we all just try to push things forward. And we'll see what happens. Like I'm not sure who's going to replace whom or where the future is. But yeah, I just like we all just want more people to create cool things.
Yeah, nice. I have another question. One second. Okay. So I saw like the Figma sites, Figma Draw, and so on. See, in the beginning, it was like a replacement of XD, like a better way of thinking of XD, right? And now you have like Figma Draw, and
Mhm.
I see the potential in there, like that you have like a better replacement of Photoshop or any other softwares where you can draw. And
Mhm.
my question is like, do you think Figma will be like the replacement of every design function or app you see nowadays? Like drawing really professional and on Figma, making products professional, making websites professional in Figma, like doing every design step or anything in design with Figma.
Like I think it's the same answer here too, where it's like we just want more people to create more stuff. If that happens in Figma, great, right? There's a lot more to do in a lot of other places, right? All of the competitors have built like crazy good tools too, right? We're just trying to get more people to design cool things. We'll see.
Right.
We'll see.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, please come in front.
Hi. Oh, this is strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question, and it's not don't confuse it for a moral question, but like where does the code come from, and like who owns it afterwards? Because I think yeah, this is kind of difficult. I mean, nobody wants to write React code, I guess, so it's that's
Yeah.
why it's not a moral question. But yeah, but how does that work right now?
Yeah.
Because I think code is
Sure.
difficult with copyright and other stuff.
Like it's your code. I'm pretty sure it's your code, because it's like in the same way that it's like it's your designs, right? We don't take ownership of the code just because like the AI models we work with, which is like standard AI models from Claude. We're probably going to let you choose which AI models you might work with eventually. We'll have to see what level of detail you can choose about like which models you can work with. But it's your code. Like it's in the same way that like your frames are your designs, right? It's just design content.
Yeah, and I think you already answered it, but so the AI is from depends on right now it's Claude, but it could be
I think right now it's Claude. I'm not sure if we made any last changes.
Yeah.
But they're like yeah, it's just like it's the AI, the common AI models under the hood. We
Yeah.
just help them to kind of
Okay, thanks.
understand Figma designs really well and kind of interactivity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. More quick. Where now? Where should I go? Okay. Where was the question? I'm confused now. What? Okay.
Oh, so you can just ask the question when you have the mic. You don't have to like walk to the camera.
Oh, it's completely fine. So thanks, first of all, for the great presentation. At least in my bubble, there's a lot of, like, say, presence about that the code of Figma sites is not that accessible. How do you deal with that, and how, like, is the path forward if you say we want more people to build awesome shit? Awesome shit means mostly for everybody, right? So how's the path forward with this regard?
We have more work to do. This is a beta version, and like ultimately config is an immovable date, right? And this is one of the reasons why we launch it as a beta, right? And it's not great. We need to fix this, and we need to allow you to make your websites more accessible. We need to make it more easier for you for those things to be accessible from the get-go. And yeah, we'll fix it. we'll make it more accessible. That's the goal.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, no. Even more. Please come in front. It's just nicer for Niko. There's the camera.
A little bit too big. Right, okay. Thanks for the talk, Niko. It was very interesting, especially the graph at the beginning. And I asked myself if you have like a clear vision regarding that you've been there for so long and from the starting point for the next steps, like will there be even more fidelity, or do you think now like this interaction is already like massively easy and very quick and efficient? And what are your thoughts on this? Where will you be in a few years, you know?
I think that like now that we have code, right? We have code and we can write code and stuff in there. You can also, by the way, you can just write code yourself. You don't have to use the AI pieces as well. So the fidelity piece is like we're really high. Like I think the value isn't necessarily that like, oh, you can get to a good idea, right? But it's about supporting this workflow, right? It's about supporting this messiness, the creative, supporting the creative process, right? And that was one of the things with code, because code is so much like people always think about production when they think about code in a design tool, and it's like, oh, it needs to be like production quality code. I'm like, nah, it really doesn't. It really doesn't. Like I'm channeling my my inner Hartmut on processing. I'm trying to use more processing code for creative explorations, right? And I think that like there's so much of that like came, I hope, kind of like comes through with this, where like code is just a material for you to play with, and it can flex into production needs, right? But if you flex that into production needs and you bring that into a design tool in which the goal isn't one final production version, but the goal is actually 500 competing ideas, and that's like that's what you do when you design, right? When you design, you explore and iterate and then compare and do things that you don't think would work, and you do things that would work and they don't work and the other things don't work, and then something else works, right? And I feel like code needs to support this, and we need to build workflows that do that, right? So I think it's like fidelity wise, it's like we have a lot of fidelity, right? But there's two parts. So how do we make these workflows more accessible and to better fit to your design workflow, right? And the other part is like which of those functionalities in that fidelity we need to find accessible abstractions for, right? Which of those things you shouldn't have to prompt. Maybe there's other ways to add interactive behaviors without having to prompt the whole thing. And I think that like finding like understanding those editing workflows and finding ways to support you throughout that process, that's the design task basically that I've that's a hard problem in and of itself. So I'm going to be doing a lot more like design journeying myself on this. So yeah, that's kind of like that's the goal.
Thank you. Very interesting. Looking forward though.
Thank you.
Super, many thanks. I have one question, one last question. Please be with me. So we're running late here a bit. You know, with all these things coming up, or it's already there, kind of it's already present. Do you have any kind of thoughts or maybe even advice for a designer in the first semester? You know, because it's kind of, you know, should we teach programming at all? Should we stop it, or should we now teach suddenly kind of historical classes in art and design history to get all the references right? I mean, do you have kind of any thoughts on that? I mean, you are familiar with the program, you studied here as well.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that? That would be really interesting.
It's also just a tool, right? And I think it's like the process of designing, the process of exploring, the process of finding, understanding what quality is like. What is it? Grundsemester? Oh, no.
Yeah, Grundlagen.
Grundstudium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like all of that is still necessary because it helps you understand what is good, like what feels right, right? I think that was one of the biggest thing for me studying in Schwäbisch Gmünd, especially in the first semesters, is like just trying to understand the range of what are possible ways to evaluate my design explorations, right? And that to me felt so much more than understanding perfectly knowing all the little details, but getting a sense on how to go through the motions of a design process, if that makes sense, right? How to find solutions and find ways to evaluate them, and then change both of those things up at the same time as you're going throughout the process, and all of that is still super, super, super necessary, right? That does like all of those are things and needs that don't disappear with AI, right? It is a faster tool for you to express an idea, and the iteration cycles are going to be faster. But that just means like if you don't know how to learn from looking at a creation and how to evaluate this and how to better understand this, or even understand the language, what you can try to design, right? And what are other tricks to design some things and make them work, how to understand users, how to solve for their problems. All these other parts, these like immaterial parts of what design is about, they're still incredibly necessary, right? And you still have to do all of those things. And I feel like in the Kunststudium, you do learn a lot of those things. And what I would like, yeah, what I would say to myself in the first semester, I'm like you gotta just do it. Like the limits now, right? The excuse of like, oh no, this is too hard to imagine, or this is too hard to build or build a first version of. Like those excuses don't exist anymore. Like it really like lowered the floor for everyone and raised the ceiling at the same time. And but it's up to you, right? It's up to you to actually take this and actually start playing with this and seeing how far you can push this and play with your ideas, right? Because this idea of like, I think this point is like people might fall less in love with their first idea because they might have a much faster time to express it, play with it, and evaluate it, right? Whereas I feel like in the past, if I built a prototype for like weeks, right? And then it's finally done. And it kind of sucks. And like, I spent so much time building this prototype. I gotta find a way to like sell this now to my professor that this is a good design idea, right? Whereas like now, I might be able to do all of that within an afternoon, right? I might fall much less in love with the idea, and I might do 5 iterations and find a much better solution than spending 5 weeks to build something.
Super. Many thanks. Yeah, I think, yeah, many thanks, Niko. Please, warm applause for Niko.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello.
Thank you.
Sweet.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.